Hello and welcome to downtown Kansas City and what is going to be my first ever photography tutorial. In this episode, we are going to shoot the skyline behind me at sunset. Obviously, the first part of shooting the city is finding a good location to shoot the picture. After walking around downtown for about maybe 3 hours earlier today, this is the location I decided on. I like the highways in front of the skyline, and I think once the light gets a little darker, we should be able to get some good light streaks from the cars out there with the city in the background. I'm currently standing at the intersection of 16th Street and Jefferson Street. If you look over that way, you may be able to see... No, I don't think you can see it, but... the Liberty Memorial is down there. That's another very popular place to shoot pictures of Kansas City, but I wanted something a little bit different tonight, so this is what I finally decided on. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to follow along with this tutorial is a camera capable of shooting in manual mode. This will normally be indicated by this little, if it'll focus correctly, this little M here on the mode dial. This will allow you to control the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. I will explain more what those mean here in a little while. I am currently shooting on the Nikon D3100, and yeah, let's get into this. So the first of these settings, come back please. Alright, sorry about that. The first of these settings I am going to explain is ISO right here. On this camera, the ISO ranges from 100 to 3200. And basically what this means is it's controlling how sensitive the camera is to light. 100 is typically the best because the higher you go, you're going to have a lot more noise show up in the camera, which is like the grainy stuff you see on some really dark photos. And yeah, it's best to stay at 100 if you can, so that's what I'm going to do here. The lower the better, normally. Okay, the second setting I am going to control is the shutter speed, which is this number right here. What this means is I'm controlling how long the camera takes to take the picture. So for example, here I am at 1/4000th of a second, so if I take the picture, you can tell it's completely dark because it's not letting enough light in that amount of time. This camera ranges all the way from 1/4000th of a second all the way down to 30 seconds, or bulb mode, which means it will be continually letting light in as long as I'm holding down the button here. Now for this photo tonight, I'm planning to use a shutter speed of about 8 seconds. Although the problem with that currently is, of course we're going to have to wait 8 seconds, so... here we go. As you can tell, it's completely white currently because it's letting in way too much light, so I'm going to have to wait for the sun to go down a bit more in order for this to work. The third setting you're going to want to be able to control is the... oh, come on. It's the aperture number right here. So, essentially what that means is it's controlling how much... Come on, focus, focus. Okay, just a minute, sorry. Alright, so it's controlling how much of the image is in focus. So, for example, if I would have had a low aperture set, a low aperture number like say 1.8, we may only see this fence in focus right here and none of this background stuff. For this photo, I'm planning on using a higher aperture number around f16 or 18 or so in order to get all of this in focus, the highways and the buildings in the background. I'll explain this a little bit more later. It's a little hard to explain with the camera set up right now, but once I get back in the car, I should be able to give you a little bit of a more detailed explanation. Okay, we're here in my car after the shoot, and we'll be back to the shoot in just a little while, but I just wanted to... I feel like I may not have completely explained aperture very well earlier, so maybe this will help you understand a little better. If you see this, this is my 50mm lens. You'll notice that... Sorry about that. Using a water cup here for a tripod, really not the best option, but don't really have a
phone tripod or anything, so it's the best I've got. Anyway, as you can see, there's this little hole here, and if I... This isn't gonna work, is it? Okay. And, of course, it doesn't want to focus. Okay, just a minute, I'll be right back. Let's see if I can find a better way to do this. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to hold this by hand and show you this one-handed, so... Anyway, here we have my 50mm lens, and if you look in there, you see this little hole in the middle. Now, if I turn this ring back here, this is hard to do one-handed, but... Okay, well... Man, I am just not having luck here. Here we go. Very hard to do one-handed. But you can see that the hole has grown quite a bit. Now, when this is on the camera, I can control this through the camera settings rather than just turning this ring, but just trying to let you kind of see what's happening here. The hole is getting bigger and smaller. Now, obviously, the bigger it is, it can let in a lot more light, which means it is a lot brighter. The smaller it is, it's obviously letting less light in, so it's darker. Now, as you can see here, we've got these numbers on the side. These are the aperture numbers like I was talking about earlier. So, kind of contrary to what you may think, 1.8 is the brightest, 22 is the darkest. Now, the reason for that is it's not only about controlling brightness, but also how much is in focus. With an aperture number of 22, you may have your whole view in focus, or at least a lot of it. With an aperture of 1.8, you may only be able to see a tiny bit, which, kind of like I was saying earlier, you may see the fence in focus, but the whole background blurred. So, you can do some cool effects down at 1.8, but when you're wanting the whole scene in focus, you're going to want to use a higher number. So in this case, like I said, I believe I was using an aperture of 16, I think. I don't remember for sure, but anyway, let's get back to the shoot.
Okay, the sun has gone down back behind these trees over here, so it should start getting a bit darker pretty soon. As soon as... Whoa, okay, I like the orange this phone is giving right here. It doesn't look that orange in person, but I like the way this is looking on camera. Sorry, okay, anyway, as I was saying, sun has begun to go down, so as soon as it gets a little darker, we should be ready to begin taking this picture. I think this is going to look pretty good. Another thing I forgot about that I should have mentioned earlier is you're going to want to make sure your camera is shooting in RAW format. What that means is it's going to give you a bit more of a... Wow, this just got really blurry. I'm sorry, this keeps happening. There we go, had to stop recording and refocus the camera on my phone. Anyway, what RAW is going to do for you is it's going to give much more editing abilities later on after the shoot. It may not look as good straight out of camera, but you're going to have much more editing capabilities, which in the end will give you a much better looking shot. Alright, the sun has set down behind the horizon over there. City lights are beginning to come on and the sky is getting darker. I think we're about ready to begin. So in order to do this, I am using this little remote control over here, so I'm not actually touching the shutter button when taking the picture. And the reason for that is I don't want to accidentally shake the camera when I press the button and come out with a blurry picture. So I am going to actually press the button down here. Probably can't see that, it's really dark, but anyway, just using my remote in order to prevent actually shaking the camera while taking the picture. Now, if you don't have a remote, that's okay. You can do this by setting the camera on a timer when you're taking the picture. That way you're still not actually touching the camera when it's taking the picture, preventing any camera shake. So, let's begin. Got my camera set on... Whoa, that is bright and blurry. Anyway, not sure if you can read that, but I've got it set on 8 seconds, an aperture of f/16, and ISO 100. So, let's begin. And here's our first photo. And I'm going to take 8 separate photos here, and I'll explain the reason for that in just a little bit, but I'm going to take 8 separate photos, so here we go. And probably no reason to film the whole thing, so I'll be back with you guys in a minute. Alright, now that I have my 8 separate photos, I am going to try adjusting the settings a little bit, maybe try some different options here, like maybe a 6-second shutter speed, or maybe a f/14 aperture, I don't know. We'll just play around with it a little bit and see if we can get any different looking results that we may end up liking more. So I'm just gonna experiment around and see what we can get. Okay, so now that we have our shots taken, it's time to begin editing this photo. So here we are in Adobe Lightroom. If you do not have this application, you can get it from adobe.com here. Just go to adobe.com, go to see what Creative Cloud can do for photographers. And for Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom alone, you can get the 2 applications for just $10 a month, which is a pretty good deal for all that you can do with these applications. Anyway, let's jump back into Lightroom and let's get started. So here I have my 8 photos that I said I was taking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I then adjusted my settings and took another 8 just so I'd have multiple options to work with. 1, 2, 3. And the only difference here is that I'm now using 6-second shutter speed instead of 8. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's another 8 photos. And then I switched to my 50 millimeter lens. So we've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess I only got 7 of that one, but that's okay. It should still work out fine. So let's begin the editing process. So the first thing to do is find an image that you like. I think I like this one to start with. So the first thing I'm going to do here is scroll down to enable profile corrections right here. Check that box and the remove chromatic aberration box. Essentially what this is doing is it's going through and let me scroll back down there. Essentially what this is doing is it detected, based on the information in the camera, what equipment I was using when I took this photo. And it just removed any distortion that it knows can tend to come from that lens. So as you can see, the edges of the photo were adjusted a little bit to make it more, I guess, less distorted. I'm not entirely sure how else to put that. Anyway, once that's done, the next thing I want to do is bring up the shadows here to lighten up the darkest parts of the image. And now I'm going to bring down the highlights, maybe not all the way, maybe something like 50, that looks good. Then up the whites, and I'm holding the Alt key here. That's going to give me this black background, so now I can see, as I drag this up, where the brightest parts are in this image. I want to drag it up to just where those are starting to appear, but they're not all the way blown out yet. Then for the blacks, I'm going to bring that down because I want the darkest parts to still be darker in the picture, even if not completely dark. Just going to bring it down again until I see stuff beginning to appear in the photo.
And I think that looks pretty good. Well, guess I didn't bring that down much at all, actually. Let's do just -6 just to have a little bit. Next thing I want to do is add a bit of sharpening to the image. So gonna come down here to sharpening, and a good rule that I've learned from here. A good rule that I've learned from this guy on YouTube, Serge Ramelli. He has a lot of good tutorials. I suggest you go check him out, but sorry. He has a lot of good tutorials. I suggest you go check him out, but a good rule I've learned from him is to always bring the noise reduction up first. In this case, we're at 100 ISO, so we shouldn't have very much noise, but because of the darkness, there is still a little bit here, so I suggest bringing it up to just maybe about 10, maybe 15. And then 15. Okay, and then once you have that, take the number 100, subtract however much you did for noise reduction, and bring that up in sharpening, so 85. Now this doesn't have to be exact, I'm just doing it to show you. And then after that, bring up the masking, and essentially what this means is anything that is black here is not going to be sharpened, anything that is white will be sharpened. We've got a few, I'm not sure how to show you this because my mouse has to stay on the slider for it to show up, but you see the little circles kind of showing up here. There. Essentially what those are is little dust spots on the sensor, so we can clean that up later. For now, anything that is white is going to be sharpened, anything that is black is not going to be sharpened. I think I already mentioned that. I do not want the sky to be sharpened, but I do want as much of the city sharpened as possible, so maybe something around there. And we can remove those dust spots later. Now that we have that done, I'm going to bring up the contrast a little bit. And a lot of this is based on personal preference, whatever looks good to you. I'm just showing you my editing process. May want to lighten it up just a tiny bit, so bring up the exposure. I think that looks pretty good. Now I want to adjust the color a little bit, so I am going to bring vibrance and saturation all the way up. Now obviously that looks terrible, so don't worry, we're not keeping it this way. But I just want to see, I just want to be able to clearly see all the color that I'm working with. Now I want to adjust the temperature slider up here to where the city looks like warmer colors, but we don't have warmer colors up in the sky. I want it to be something just right around here. I think that looks good. So as you can see, the city is well lit up, but the sky is nice and blue. And then with the tint, I want to kind of do similar. I want the city to be a little bit of a more purple, I guess, more magenta. But I don't want to change the sky too much, so I think something around here probably looks best. So now let's bring down the vibrance and saturation and see how that looks. Okay, I think that may be a bit too warm, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit. And you can press the backslash key to see before and after, and I think that looks decently good, actually. So now that we have that done, I'm going to take the settings that I've done to this photo and sync them to all of these other photos by pressing Command A, or that's Control A on a Windows computer, to select all of these photos. And now click the sync button, and it is going to sync all of the settings from the photo I have selected here to all of these other photos. Everything that's checked is going to be synced, and I don't really care to uncheck anything, so synchronize. And now you will slowly begin to see them all begin to change down here. Now let me explain a little bit why I did 8 separate photos. These ramps you see here in the picture here, these highway ramps, These are the ramps connecting Interstate Highways 70 and 35, both of which are major cross-country highways. So obviously you're going to have a lot of traffic going by on these highways, but you don't get a feel of how much traffic is driving by in just an 8-second window. So what I want to do is I want to take the highway lights we're seeing from all of these photos and combine them into one image. So what I want to do first, okay, it's kind of bugging me how these are all lit up, so I'm just going to press Command D to deselect them all. So I'm going to scroll through the options here and see which of my settings here I like the looks of best. I think the 6-second shots are a bit dark. And these ones are kind of cool looking, but I think I like the wider view more that we had at the beginning, so I think I'm going to work with these ones. So we're going to take these 8 photos, select them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we've got 8 photos selected here. Right click. Actually, before we do that, open up Adobe Photoshop down here. And this may take a little while, sorry. Okay, here we go. So now go back to Lightroom, right click, edit, open as layers in Photoshop. And again, this may take a little while, so if it does, I apologize for that. If it's taking too long, I can just put the video on pause and then come back as soon as it opens. In fact, I think I'll do that. Okay, and we're back with all of these 8 different photos open as layers here in this Photoshop file. So the first thing I want to do is align these layers just in case I accidentally moved the camera or it got shaken or anything. So we're going to go to Edit and Auto Align Layers. You can leave it on auto, that'll be fine. Click OK. And again, this may take some time, so I'll be right back once it finishes. Okay, and now that all of the layers are aligned, I'm going to go through and turn each layer off, or make them invisible, except for these bottom 2. And the reason for that is I'm going to start by blending these 2 together and then one at a time blend each one in. So, and you'll notice there's a bit of a weird edge here. That's just from the auto align. We can crop that when we're done working with this whole thing. So, what we want to do to blend this together is set the blend mode here to screen. Now what that's going to do is it's going to take the darkest parts of the image and just drop them out, and the lightest parts are going to get blended into the photo. Now, it lightens the whole photo, and we don't really want that, so we're going to run a bit of an adjustment, a little adjustment on here to darken it. So go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, or you can also just press Command L or Control L to bring this up. Slide this slider a little ways just to darken the image. I think about there looks good. So I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to put a layer mask on this by clicking this button right here. And what this does is anything... Here, let me show you this way. we're going to take the paint bucket tool and fill the layer mask with the color black. Now essentially what this means is, well, it's a mask, it covers something up, and in this case it's covering up this whole photo because it's completely black. Now as long as we have the mask selected on here, we can grab the paintbrush tool, set the color to white, and anything that we paint on with white is going to blend through, as you can kind of see here. Press Command Z to undo that. And I'm going to select a different brush here, something a little more round and soft. So soft round ought to work well. Gonna make it a little bigger. I'm using the left and right bracket keys to control the brush size here. And now we can begin masking in our car trails. So by simply painting them in here. And if you accidentally get a spot you didn't want to get, just press the X key to switch the colors over here and paint black back over it. Now with that done, we're going to do the same thing on this next layer. Bring it in. Screen mode. Command L for levels. Darken it a little bit. Something like that maybe. Mask. Alt backspace will fill the mask with the color black, so that's a quick shortcut key for you. And now press X to switch the colors and begin painting white to reveal even more car streaks. And repeat for each layer. Very repetitive. So I'm going to do this one more time, and then I'm just going to put the video on pause while I finish up, because I don't think you care to watch it 8 separate times. So, one more time. Command L for levels. One more step before that. Turn on the layer. Blend mode's green. Command L to bring up the level adjustment. Darken the photo. Okay. New mask. Alt backspace to fill with black. And it filled with white because that's the color I had selected over here. So switch the colors. Alt backspace to fill with black. X to switch the colors. And paint in the light streaks. Alright, so as I said, I'm going to put this on pause and we'll be right back after I finish up all these layers. Okay, and we're back. So I have done all of these adjustments, and now we have a nice car streak look in here. So the next thing to do is crop out these weird edges. So go to the crop tool. I want to keep the same aspect ratio, which is 3:2. So gonna just drag the edges until framing looks good, and I think actually there we go. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna click the check mark here to crop the image. And here we have almost the final product of our work. Now I'm going to go through and take care of those dust spots we saw earlier. So, first of all, I'm going to select all the layers down here. Press Command, Alt, Shift, E. And what this is going to do is it's going to create for us a new layer that is a combination of all the lower layers. So now anything we do here to this layer, basically we'll only have to do it to this one instead of every single one of these. So now we're gonna zoom in and look around for any dust spots. Here's one right here. So I'm gonna grab the healing brush here and click on that spot. And essentially what it's doing is it's analyzing the surrounding pixels and just putting in what it thinks it should look right here. So here's one here, here's one here, one here. And just do a quick look over the photo. It's... Uh-oh. Please don't crash on me. Please. Well, I'm sorry, but I guess I'll put this video on pause again until this comes back. Okay, it's back. Didn't crash on me, thankfully. Good reminder to save the work. So let's go to File, Save As. And I guess for now I'm just going to save it to the desktop. Save as Photoshop file. Let's call it KC in progress. Save. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Normally it's a good idea to zoom in to around 100%. This is still saving, it's going a little slow. But zoom in to about 100% and then you'll really be able to notice any of those dust spots that happen to pop up. So scroll around, here's one. Here's one. Here's one. There. And just look around, try to find any of those. And just clean them up as best you can. Normally it's pretty easy unless it's in a really crazy area of the photo, but most of them tend to just show up in sky or something, so it's normally pretty easy. And that may be pretty much it. So let's zoom out. And with all of that, here is our final photo of downtown Kansas City. So, I hope this tutorial helped you. As I said, this is my very first tutorial I'm ever doing, so I admit there were some rough points in this, and I apologize for those. But if you watched the whole thing, then thank you for sticking with me. I'm hoping to do many more tutorials in the future, hopefully turning out better than this one. If you have any advice or any suggestions for future tutorials, I'd love to hear them. So just leave a message in the comments, and thanks for watching. Oh, and one more thing. Maybe I should show you this. Just how you get the image out of Photoshop if you're not sure. Go to File. And I used to think it would be under Export. It's actually under just the regular Save menu. So let's go to File, Save As. And we've got the KC in progress one we just saved. Let's change the format here to JPEG. Rename to Kansas City. Save. And now, if I go to my desktop here, Kansas City, there it is. So, hope this tutorial helped you guys. I will definitely try to improve for future tutorials, but thanks for watching, and see you next time.